this concept that as we try to shut down critical race theory, we're actually shutting down, it's that like talking point, we're actually shutting down the real history of, people don't want to learn about racism and stuff. And that's just not true. I keep yelling that as loud as I can. It's not true.
Right. We are here today with the amazing Will Reusch. Will is, well, first of all, thank you for being on today. I admire your insight, your wisdom, your input. Will is a high school teacher in Los Angeles. He is also the moderator of the Heterodox Academy K-12 education group, the host of Cylinder Radio. And his aim is to disarm echo chambers through civil discourse and critical thinking, and has done an amazing job so far with just educational content on Instagram and all over the internet. Thank you so much, Will, for being on today. And we're just gonna dive into this painting, Critical Race Theory by Jonathan Harris. So just off the bat, what were your initial thoughts when you saw this painting?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for the introduction. Like, the respect is mutual. I really love what you're doing too. Thank you for bringing me in. As I teach U.S. history, government, and civics, the idea that we are painting over, the framework, the scaffolding of Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, it was Harriet Tubman, I think.
That's right. Yeah.
Like, that idea that critical race theory is somehow, like the doing that is upholding their ideas. I don't really subscribe to that.
Right.
But then, so I reached out actually to the artist, and I reached out to, I think I sent it to you initially. Art's kind of cool because you can interpret whatever you want. Once you make the art, it becomes the audience, it becomes the viewers, and they can interpret. So I asked different people what they thought of it, and I got a whole bunch of different takes. My initial one was this concept that as we try to shut down critical race theory, we're actually shutting down, it's that like talking point, we're actually shutting down the real history of, people don't want to learn about racism and stuff. And that's just not true. I keep yelling that as loud as I can. It's not true.
Right.
I know the state standards of in high school, like history classes of all 50 states, have some element of Martin Luther King and slavery and Jim Crow. They all teach this. They have to teach it by law. It's in the state standards.
Right.
So critical race theory is not covering that up. And that's why it was a little disturbing to me at first.
And I just want to say, this painting is, I think the crazy thing about it is it's very effective. Like, the way it communicates its point is very effective. However, what grieves me is that it's misleading in its entirety. So it's kind of scary because of that, but it's great. That's kind of one of the things I love about it, is like, it does the job of a painting, which is to make people think, to inspire conversation. And I think the artist himself, if I could just quickly go to this article from blackenterprise.com, the initial caption on the painting on his Instagram says, "Thanks for the kind words, messages, and calls. Those that disagree, I love you too. Love thy neighbor, even if they share a difference of opinion." So the artist himself is a bit, he's open-minded, and I love that. And hopefully you get to have a dialogue with him soon. But then the surrounding conversation, I feel like news media completely just took it to a different angle and continued this misleading narrative that CRT is erasing Martin Luther King Jr., Harriet Tubman, and Malcolm X in education. So what are your thoughts about like the painting plus the viral reception of it and the narrative that's being spun?
So I didn't see a lot of like the commentary on it. I saw it. I spend I post stuff on Instagram and I make stories and stuff like that, but I actually don't spend as much time on there as one would think, like scrolling and looking at the commentary and stuff. Just I have a little baby at home, and so I was really busy. But I think that it reiterates that same point that I've heard over and over and over again, which is that the people, you see these parents pushing back against it in at the school board meetings and stuff. And what they're trying to do is cover up America's racist past, to just whitewash this idea of all these people that worked, fought, died for these very important, upholding the beautiful promise of this country that we had not lived up to yet. It's, you know, America is this ideal. We haven't reached it yet, but it's an aim, it's a goal. And this concept that we are trying to cover that up, all this hard work, was really upsetting, because this is what people died for. And I don't see critical race theory, you know, as this like, you know, single bullet that or panacea that's going to just like you know, cure everything. But I think critical race theory has a place. I do.
Yeah.
I'm not one of those people that thinks that it should be banned. I'm not for banning ideas. I think it has a place. But the idea that it's a white guy, you know, rolling over this past to just cover it up, the same way that we want to shut down critical race theory with this legislation of no critical race theory, that's just not the case. And it's so easy, if you get out of your echo chamber, to see that that's not the case. If you actually talk to someone who's against it, including many Black faces that are against it, then you'll see that it's not so simple. And it's just a little upsetting, because it's a beautifully done painting, very talented artist. So to use those talents to do something that I see as divisive was kind of upsetting.
Yeah. Do you think the idea of, so first of all, that the painters said that white person with the roller in the painting is meant to represent America. You know, there's a symbolism of like a few kind of stars on their shoulder. Do you think it's an oxymoron to be patriotic and to believe in America's principles and its vision, and also be pro-racial justice? Do you think it's an oxymoron to kind of put those two together?
Before racial justice and be a patriot?
Yeah.
No, I think those go hand in hand. I mean, it just depends on how you define racial justice, I suppose. I mean, I would define it as equality of opportunity, and we want to get as close to that as we possibly can. No, I think that's exactly what it's about. It's about equality. This country was founded on equality, and I know that we haven't done it, and I know throughout the past that there were real systemic racist issues, whether you know, through slavery and Jim Crow and redlining. But then even up to this day, when you look at you could look at the war on drugs, or you could look at a lot of stuff within like COVID restrictions. I mean, I follow Hawk Newsom, the head of Black Lives Matter New York, and he is very anti-vax.
Right.
And look at this. I mean, this stuff is tricky. So no, I think that's exactly what you need to figure out is how we can get to the American ideal where your skin color does not matter when it comes to you being an American and equal citizen. I think that's what we should be aiming for.
Right, absolutely. And the irony of the fact that Harriet Tubman is sort of the lead in this. Do you have any commentary of that? Because she's sort of the centerpiece of this painting. And CRT, I believe, kind of takes us back, and at least I'm speaking as a Black community. I feel like CRT, not only in schools, but kind of its dissemination into media and science, even the medical field, and, you know, into all these facets of life, regressing for us in that we're kind of bound to identity and limited to just kind of our skin color, our achievements are, you know, determined to a certain extent. What do you have to say about that?
I mean, I talk about Harriet Tubman in my class, and I do the quote. I put up the quote that she has of something like, I freed 1,000 slaves. I could have freed 1,000 more if only they knew they were slaves. And that's like, that hits, because you and your story, you know, helped, you know, kind of solidify that even more for me, is this idea of people don't know that they're kind of restricting themselves, that they're limiting themselves, all this kind of stuff, because they've been told themselves. And so I use these like cliche, these like silly Candace Owens kind of things, but like this like victim narrative. And you know, like, oh, I'm a victim, I'm oppressed, everyone's out to get me, all this kind of stuff. I can't go out, I can't do that, I can't do what those people do, that like very limiting kind of thing, where what we want is a more empowering message. And she being in the front was that empowering message of like, you don't have to live this way. This world is yours, this country is yours equally. So go take it. Like that inspiring message of like, go get them. I think that's an incredible message. So having her in the front just is like the kind of the badass in the front, I thought it was really cool. But again, it's like, are we saying that covering up critical race theory is covering that up. I just don't see it, because one of the biggest criticisms of critical race theory, critical social justice stuff, is focusing on the negatives, focusing on all the ways you've been wronged. And, you know, your story really hit me. I think about it often, actually, Kimi, when you talk about how you wrote down, you know, microaggressions and stuff. Just everyone is out to get me. You know, that story of Michelle Obama, where she said she was at a bakery and she just had like a hat on and no one knew that she was the first lady, and a white lady butted in front of her and she's like, people don't even see you, and she butted in front of me because I was black. And it's like, maybe she just butts in front of people. Like, you don't really know. But the part of critical race theory is you kind of look for that, so that racist angle, and if you look for it, you'll find it. You can find that in anywhere. So that's, yeah, I mean, that's a little that's where it kind of affects me, because I've taught a lot of kids from all different ethnicities and very diverse kids and stuff like that. And I've had students tell me, like, I was told by teachers, like, out of one corner of their mouth, like, you can achieve anything, but really, like, kids like you can't. The world is out to get kids like you. And that's really damaging to a young person. Absolutely.
In fact, this morning, I'm sure you saw this, I just saw this on your story, but Tulsi Gabbard reacted to Joe Biden's divisiveness. And I'm not trying to get political or anything, but, you know, there's been this sort of label placed on people who are kind of active against the dangers in CRT, not CRT entirely, but like the dangers in CRT in education. And how do you feel about, you know, this label of domestic terrorist, or this sort of narrative that the only people who are coming after CRT are far-right extremists? What do you think about the languaging there?
It's just, I mean, Tulsi's so good. It's like, she just has like a soft way of like conveying things, even when she's really passionate. I think that's one of the biggest things I do admire about her, is her tone and her approach to things. You know, we are at a really tough time. I think Donald Trump actually had a lot to do with that. I think he was a divisive character. I think that he's a media character, and look at what our media does. It divides people, it fires people up, it gets people to click. And so that's, you know, that started this kind of unraveling, and then it just became the norm. It became a moneymaker. I mean, that's a lot of it, is, you know, Trump brought a lot of money into these media companies. They go, oh, well, divisive stuff makes money. It's all about stock, you know, prices and corporate greed and all that kind of stuff. I think it's a mess. I'm really concerned. There's like, where is the intellectual humility of like, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm missing something, and where's the curiosity of asking, like, instead of like, if you're against critical race theory and I'm like a white man, you're a black woman, I go, you're against critical race theory and I'm all for it. Like, what am I missing? Like, I might be missing something. Let me dive into that, like with genuine curiosity. Like, are you like a far right person? Because so many people are like, nope, never voted Republican, or, you know, or I've just, you know, rarely voted Republican, or I vote for both. And some are Republicans, but even if they are Republicans, it doesn't make them a bad person. Yeah. So I think that with all this divisiveness, I think one of the biggest cures would be to dive into that curiosity and just trying to get, you're missing something. Half the country is not bad people. They're labeling it like moral, immoral. And that's just not, it's not that simple. And that's what's really frustrating. And I think that we can look at it like, maybe we're all moral, we're just differently moral. And then we make mistakes, as we both do, but we have these blind spots, and lean into those blind spots more. I'm trying to advocate for that as much as I can.
Right. And you actually have 3 pillars that you believe will help aid like more civil discourse. Could you share a bit about those 3 pillars?
Yeah. Do you like them?
Oh, they're perfect. I think about them a lot. Like, grace is my word for this year. Yeah. And I need that. I realize like I'm actually very bad at that. So thank you for kind of bringing that up time and again. Like, yeah.
I steal so many ideas because I'm constantly consuming information and reading books and stuff, but this is like an original. So I'm constantly trying to challenge it, but it's the idea. And I have it right here, like next to my desk where I do my work when I'm teaching online and stuff. Intellectual humility. Just, we all feel like we're so right. We're so certain. We figured it out, you know, and especially in this intellectual world, because the CRT discussions has become very intellectual, you know, but you might be missing something. You know, we all have a lot to learn, you know, and part of being a teacher, we always say like, let's build lifelong learners. And I try to be a lifelong learner. I'm always trying to learn. What am I missing here? So the first one is intellectual humility. The second one is genuine curiosity. here's what's cool about this one is it's the default. We've actually clouded it, but a lot of like, let's say very like whatever, for the pejorative term, but like woke people, they go, how could you be against it? Like that's deep down, there is a real question there, you know? Someone who is kind of the opposite, who's like, you know, very like maybe they are even if they are like overtly racist or something, like, how could you actually subscribe to this? Like, I don't understand it. So lean into that, lower your kind of your walls a little bit, and just be curious. And I really believe that that when you're very curious and you actually want to try and figure out the things that you have question marks about, then you'll become intelligent. I was never like a very intelligent kid through school. I wasn't like a good student or anything. But when I started to lean into curiosity and you know, become passionately curious, and I just happened to become smarter because I actually just curious about everything. You know, how does this work? How does that? So I think leaning into that would be huge for people. And then the third one is grace, which, as you mentioned, it could be defined a bunch of different ways, but like pausing on judgment, giving people the benefit of the doubt, believing that they have good intentions. You know, it's not just being nice; it's giving them some slack, because we're all going to screw up, and you don't jump on people right away. You just kind of let them work things out and show a lot of you know, softness and open-heartedness and care and concern. And I think if you mix these all together, I think the discourse of the country could be better. You know, and it's not easy because a lot of it, what gets in the way of all this stuff, I think, is ego. Is like, well, if I get proven wrong, then and how you identify actually matters too. Because if you identify as the smartest person in the room, then what happens when you get proven wrong? Then who am I as a person, right? But if you identify as the person who wants to figure it out, like, I don't have an ego about having right answers at all. People say like, wow, you're really good at this. Like, I don't know, but I want to figure it out. So if my identity identify as I am someone who wants to figure it out, then when you correct me, it's like, thank you. I want to give people a hug who prove me wrong, not get mad or angry. As much as you get a little bit of that, but overall, you look at the long game and you go, wow, this is better, because I don't want to carry around bad ideas. Why would you want to carry around bad ideas? Kimi, people like have bad ideas and they protect them with these walls and aggression. Right. Why? You don't want to carry around bad ideas. It doesn't make any sense. It's going to serve. That's not going to make you the best version of yourself.
Exactly. No, this is brilliant. I think more people need to embrace those three pillars. We could have so much more understanding. It doesn't mean that everyone has to switch over to one side, but we could just be all more understanding about where different people come from, and maybe combine our strengths in all these different, like, you know, arguments or ideas or proposals. Because like you said, there are sort of issues like mass incarceration and the war on drugs that we need to talk about, and we need to kind of find a solution to, but acting like, you know, there's absolutely no trace of racism in the, like, those things, it doesn't help to just kind of, you know, my way is the right way and that's it.
So, it happens on both sides of the political aisle for sure. I'm sorry.
No, absolutely. So yeah, just sort of to wrap this up, and thank you so much for all this insight. Well, two questions. The first would be to anyone who's watching this who has seen the painting, and they believe that CRT, the painting, is effective to communicate that CRT is erasing history. What material would you recommend for people to kind of get a better understanding of critical race theory or critical race theory in education? What would you direct them to?
That's hard. You know, I think that, you know, because what it is I go towards people that I actually very much disagree with their practice. So like, they don't follow this. So someone like James Lindsay, who I consider a friend. I mean, he's done my podcast. I've talked to him, you know, publicly and privately. I don't like his approach. I don't think he has a lot of these things, but he knows his stuff. So I think what you have to do is you have to consume it from places that know what it actually is, but then you have to kind of put your own angle on it, because like someone like James Lindsay, who really understands this kind of thinking, his approach might kind of turn you off a little bit. But Irshad Manji is someone that I've also worked with, who I really adore. Her approach is very interesting. She has an excellent book called Don't Label Me. She has the Moral Courage Project, and she has a very soft approach, and she shows a lot of grace in her approach. So I think she is a great tool for for this stuff. But then there's a lot of people on social media that bring approaches to this stuff. Yourself, I love like Aisha Akambi. I love Africa Brooke. You know, there's a lot of people out there that just like that can kind of cut through it. A lot of them are artists. I love Salome Siboney. You know, there's a lot of people that can talk about these kinds of topics in a way that is soft and kind of shows the common humanity that we all have.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot to say, I was talking to Eric's Electrons about that. I think I sent him the painting too. And what he said, he gave a totally different way to flip it on its angle. So when you look at the painting, he said, well, you could also interpret this. I don't know if the artist did, but you could interpret this as critical race theory is covering up all of the hard work that these people did, which is like an interesting kind of flipped end on that. And maybe that's what it means. I don't know. But that's just, I just wanted to include that because it's like it's art. So you can view it any way you want. I mean, essentially. It's not the artist.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, a few people interpreted it that way when I shared it. So an interesting kind of twist to that. And finally, Will, where can people find you? You have great content, and you're one of those people who provide insight into what CRT really is, especially as a high school teacher. So where can people find you?
Thank you. Yeah, I use Instagram a lot. I'm actually shadow banned now, so it might be tricky because if you type in my name, you actually can't see me a lot of times, which is frustrating again because I'm a teacher and I'm asking questions. I don't tell anyone to do anything. I think a lot of it was around COVID, and I just had questions. But I mean, for what it's worth, like I got my booster. I'm very like, you know, not anti-vax, but even asking questions about that, you know, got me shadow banned. But I guess it would be my name on Instagram or Cylinder Radio. I'm going to lean into doing more podcasts on that, and that's available on Spotify and everything. Or I have a website. You can find me online. I think you probably just Google me. I really enjoy this. It feels like an expansion of my classroom, and it connects me to amazing people like you. And you know, being a lifelong learner, why not use these channels that we have of technology to just get better? Why not exercise our brain a little bit and things and ask questions and things like that? I really enjoy it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Will. This has been fantastic. Thank you for your insight. And hopefully, you know, more and more people just continue learning and they embrace your 3 pillars and there's greater discourse. All right.
That'd be wonderful.
Cheers.
Great to see you, Kimi.